Rachel and I are back, and if for those of you that were able to tune in last week, we talked a little bit about our program that is coming up, and we wanted to get a little more in depth today about a certain aspect of that, which is abuse, since we both specialize in relationships and trauma.
Mhm.
So specifically, we wanted to talk about manipulation um, while you're in an abusive relationship, and also what different forms of abuse might look like or feel like, so that you can maybe identify if that's something that you're feeling. Um, but really, we just felt this coming up for both of us
Mm.
recently, and we couldn't ignore it, so we needed to share it. And that's really the main reason why we're on today, is to talk about manipulation in while you're in an abusive relationship, and the different forms of abuse that could happen.
Yeah, so just kind of touching on that is, Leah and I have been talking over the last kind of month about our program and getting everything together, and it's been really interesting watching things pop up. So yeah, one day when we spoke, it was interesting. Both of us kind of were not necessarily triggered, but both of us kind of had experiences in our own lives that made us remember our own kind of abusive relationships. And, we were speaking yesterday, and I opened up to Leah about my experience with abuse and the different forms that I encountered. And so for me, like, I experienced physical abuse as well as emotional abuse, sexual abuse, financial abuse, and kind of lost my whole life, kind of fell apart. And it was interesting to share that with Leah, like how you kind of reacted to it, I guess, for lack of a better word. But do you want to
I
share a
guess
bit
I
about
didn't.
how you...
Yeah, I didn't. I mean, I guess I didn't realize that specifically the one that popped up for me was the financial abuse. Like, I didn't realize that there were so many ways that you could be, I guess, taken advantage of. And I think when I heard that, it sort of like struck a chord for me, because it was like, oh, there's a name for that thing that I was feeling, that I went
Mm,
through. And yeah, I think that's why also it's important to talk about these things, is because so often we're having these experiences and we don't have names for them. And they're just
mm,
these abstract things that are going on in our heads, and that we are feeling something's not quite right. But as soon as someone puts a name to it, and as soon as someone's able to describe it, you're like, oh, that's me. Like, I think I'm going through that. And it's so
yeah.
helpful to shine a light in that shadowy area.
And even if you're experiencing it, like for me personally, there was a massive element of denial. Like, I remember I was sitting in a room full of women, like when we were going to court, and I was sitting there going, I don't belong here. So, my boyfriend was literally physically punching me. And I was in such denial about the experience and the situation that I didn't even recognize or know. I think it's just so traumatic that um, it's almost like you can't even admit it, because it's just so far-fetched. You're like, this is actually happening to me. So, yeah, it's really interesting the way that we cope with the situations that are happening around us.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I remember having similar feelings too, um, when I was going through my divorce, and describing different things to the counselor, and them saying, you realize that that's abuse.
Mm,
And it was like something, like I had been coping for so long, trying to reason my way through, like, there's got to be a reason for this, right? There's got to be a reason. There's, is it something that I've done? Is it just this a stress that he's in? Or trying to reason through it. And as soon as the therapist said,
Mm.
that's abuse. It was like, you're right, and it's not okay, and there isn't a good reason for it, and I shouldn't
Mm.
try to find a reason. But it was a coping mechanism for, yeah, for a long time. Why do you think that is? Like, why do you think we feel like we want to give the, maybe, I don't know, the benefit of the doubt?
Well, I guess like for me personally, I was very young. I was 21. And I mean, if you can experience it at all ages, but for me personally, in my experience, I had zero self-esteem. I was so down on myself. I didn't think that I was worthy of anything. So then, I attracted a man to me to reflect that back to me. I would energetically beat myself up. So then again, like I attracted this man in to show back to me how I was treating myself. And it just, yeah, it really stems from that low self worth and like just thinking well, for me, not thinking that I was worthy of anything. So then, this guy comes into my life to literally beat me up. Yeah, so it's and going back to your original point, like it also that manipulation as well. It's like two pieces of the puzzle. They're or not him, because men can experience this as well. A lot of men experience this. There's so much shame and guilt around it. Like, this is the first time that I've spoken so publicly about this, because it just feels like this needs to be shared. This needs to be, shone a light on, because you shouldn't, I mean, it's not something to feel guilt or shame about. It's something you've
Yeah.
experienced. And, there's an element of manipulation. It's like these
Oh yeah.
people, man or woman, they deceive us and make us feel that it's us and it's our fault.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
when,
That's a really good, I guess, segue into that topic, the topic of manipulation. And um, because I think a big part of being abused and just the whole dynamic of it in general, it just, I feel so strongly that it really wouldn't exist sustainably if there weren't such measures, like manipulative measures taken.
mm,
And I think that was really hard to realize, because I know you are, we're both very intelligent women.
mm,
We didn't just suddenly become intelligent the moment we decided to walk away. It wasn't like, oh, this whole time we were stupid, and then suddenly we got smart and decided to leave. Um, Being manipulated, being abused is not a reflection of your intelligence. It just speaks to the deceptive nature of what it means to be abused and to be manipulated. You can, you know, especially for people like us, I think that think of others and have their hold others in a high regard.
mm,
We want to see the positive. We want to believe that everyone's got good intentions. Um, I think it's important to realize that, sometimes people don't. People don't have the good intentions that you would hope
mm,
them to have for them to have, and it's not your fault. It's not, it's not any lack of awareness on your part. But there are some things I think that you can do to help you identify, is this manipulation? Is this something that has that deceptive nature? Am I being somehow tricked here, or taken advantage of? And so we wanted to talk a little bit about maybe what it feels like to be manipulated, some of the things that you can even um, use to identify if that's happening to you too. Did you have anything on that to say?
um, I think it's like, for me, it's a feeling in the body. Like for example, with you and I, Leah, like our relationship just flows. It's really easy and effortless. Like it's just, you feel good when you're around people that make you feel good. You feel empowered and encouraged and lighthearted. Whereas, like, when you're, like, for me, when I'm around people that are manipulative or, perhaps don't have my best intentions at heart, I feel like I close off. I feel
Yeah.
unsure and uncertain. And, there's no, like, it's like this jittery, like, oh, you're kind of walking on eggshells. You don't want to say the wrong thing. And I think it's just recognizing those two differences and knowing that, even if it's just a friend, it doesn't have to be a lover or partner. Like it can
Totally.
be a friend as well. And it's just recognizing, like, is this person serving me or not? And,
Hmm.
if they're not, it's just having that courage to walk away.
Hmm.
Because
Hmm.
at the end of the day, like a scorpion, its nature is to sting you.
Hmm.
It can't
Hmm.
help but sting you.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I agree. It's funny you bring up the scorpion. It's like one of my spirit animals. Yeah, I feel like one of the, I guess, if just thinking right now on, the feelings of the body, when for me it's in my throat.
Mm,
I feel it a lot in my chest, just like this
mm,
closed choking um feeling, and it's a heaviness, like when I feel like I'm being manipulated.
yeah.
um but I guess if I were to put it into words instead of feelings, I would say when I'm trying to draw a boundary for myself, whether that's, I don't want to go hang out tonight, or I would prefer to eat at, this restaurant, or it's not okay for you to treat me like that, or I would like to share my point of view now. Um,
Mm,
Anytime, those are all different forms of boundaries, or like needing space, asking for what you want, asking for what you need. Anytime you are shamed for that, anytime you are um, maybe minimized or belittled for having those boundaries, or even just flat out denied those boundaries, like, no, you're not getting that, or no, you can't have that, there is no discretion, or you're stupid to want that, or you don't know any better. um, what else? Everyone else is going to probably think less of you, or those are all just classic forms of manipulation, in my opinion, that are very detrimental um, to our self-esteem, because then we begin to doubt ourselves, and we begin to doubt our instincts and intuitions and wants and needs, and we begin to ask ourselves, maybe what I need doesn't really matter, maybe what I deserve isn't what I deserve. And when we begin to question those things, that's where it becomes a slippery slope. And that's where abuse comes into play. And someone can say, in fact, you deserve to be abused. And
mm,
suddenly we take that on as our truth,
mm,
once we've slipped down that slope more. And
yeah.
so, yeah, that was a major thing for me, was the whole boundary thing. And yeah, I love that. Extinguishing gaslighters. So
Mm,
gaslighting is when, and thanks for writing that in there to one of people following along. The gaslighting is when you are telling someone else, hey, I'm not really happy with the way that you've been treating me, or I'm not really, you know you're basically calling someone else out on what you feel they're doing wrong, and they turn it around on you, and you end up being the one who's at fault every
mm,
time, or saying sorry for
mhm.
something that wasn't your fault. So
Gotcha.
it's very manipulative.
Yeah.
Another form of manipulation. I've done so much research on this, you guys, because I fell into the trap of so many of these manipulative methods. But one of them that I thought was very interesting is called triangulation. And that's when the person who's emotionally, verbally abusing you is talking to other people in your support network and convincing them to convince you. So basically like a teaming up on you. For me, it was an old, best friend of mine who was teaming up with an ex, and they were both trying to get me to do this certain thing. And I was turning to each one of them, and they were both backing each other up and kind of backing me into a corner sort of deal. That's triangulation, and that was a big one for me also, to recognize like you need to be very, very firm in your values and your boundaries, because
Can I just jump in quickly there?
yeah, please.
Yeah, I feel like it's also really recognizing those red flags. Like, I feel I was too young and just did not have that awareness in my own realm. But it's like you can feel it. It's like when they're, like you said, when they're turning it all around you, it's like all your fault. There's these little red flags that just keep popping themselves up. And, if it's not feeling right, it's like, get the hell out of there, because it only escalates from there. It just gets worse every time. It just gets worse and worse and worse. So it's just like, extinguishing that fire before it turns into a, catastrophic bushfire. So it's just like, putting out the match before it turns into the big fire.
Yeah. Do you think that there's a way to, have, because I think that sometimes we're talking about extreme cases of manipulation, but there are cases, like I was telling you yesterday, where we manipulate ourselves even. And,
exactly.
And then we have loved ones who will use manipulative behaviors without even knowing it, really, without that malicious intent. In which case I feel like that would be a good opportunity, not to just walk away, but to voice or to say, this is a little bit manipulative, or what about what's going on. How do you have you thought about like a good way to do that rather than just leave? How would you communicate better?
Okay. It was interesting. Last year was my year of really learning to come out and communicate, because I had zero communication skills. So last year was my training grounds, which at times was really, really difficult. And like my voice would quiver almost like it is now. And like I'd be crying, I'd be shaking. But, I just could not hold it in anymore. It was just like enough of suppressing what I'm feeling, because it was just too hard to, your video is flipped. And yeah, it was just way too hard to hold it in. So it was just really having the courage to stand up and really just express whatever it is, what I was feeling. And I found that 9 times out of 10, the people that, there was one day where I called people. I just kept calling people. I think I rang about 5 people in one day and just really just went, look, this is how I'm feeling. I'm sorry it's taken so long. But, and just shared how I felt. And it was really empowering. I didn't do it in a way that tore them down or anything. Just like, if I say for example, like Leah, I'm sorry it took this long. This is how I'm feeling. What happened really upset me. And, it just, the people that I spoke to really enabled the space for me to share how I was feeling, which was amazing. And, there was even one person that I reached out to, and she was like, thank you for reaching out. But, it's like, it's what it is, basically.
Yeah.
So, sometimes you might not get the response that you want, but that's irrelevant. It's about you standing up and just owning your voice and sharing, no matter what the outcome is. And sometimes that's not easy. I feel like I'm black. It ain't easy sometimes, girlfriend. Well, gangster. Yeah, sometimes it's not easy, but
It's
like,
not.
the only ways to do it, the only way to learn is by just having the courage to express how you feel. Um,
Absolutely. And I think
yeah.
you're so good now at like really gracefully communicating that. And even, when I've talked to you and I start rambling on about this past story that I have in my head and I'm, like I said, manipulating myself, you'll even say like, stop, let's revisit this because I feel like this isn't really what you're meaning to say. And yeah,
Mm,
you've really picked up on, being able to identify those moments, I think, not only for yourself, but, in others as well, which I think is such a cool gift. Um, which is also why I'm really excited to be talking about this subject in
yes.
depth in our program.
Yeah.
Not only getting into, what it is that we want, um, but also, being able to reflect on when we are being abused,
Mm,
um, how can we reflect it back onto ourselves and sort of learn um, and
mm,
think about, where am I sort of abusing myself here? Where am I not respecting
yeah.
myself enough?
Mm,
Or where am I not drawing boundaries within myself enough in this moment? Um, I think, we're not here to say like there's just these bad people out there. We're here to
mm,
say, there is a more empowering way that you can have these experiences and come out on the other end stronger than you ever imagined. Um, so, I mean, we've experienced that firsthand, the two, you and I. So we're really, yeah, just excited to share that content and those tools with you all in our program. Um, do you want to talk a little bit about what the program's called and when it's starting?
sure. So we start on the 4th of February. Woo! So it's called Release, Rise, Receive. And it's an 8-week journey to authentic love. And it's really just a beautiful alchemy of what Leah does and what I do. So, like what Leah said, I feel people and their energy, and I can feel when they're, pardon French, bullshitting themselves, and I can feel when
Mm-hmm.
it's an old story that they've just attached to, and it's like I can feel the truth, and it's like I help guide them into that truth. And it's almost like that, the merging of the two. I know that Leah, you've experienced it where you're hanging on to that old story, and it's like, well, that's not actually the truth anymore, and then we like bring the two together, and it's just like this energy happens, and it's just amazing to feel and
Amazing.
watch my clients light up and let go of this old story that they're holding on to. So it's going to be a pretty epic journey with Leah and I and whoever joins in the group. It's you know like when you can bring that group collective, that group energy to reflect off each other and really, it's interesting when, in my experience, when there's group work, someone will start talking. You might even not get to share in the hour and a half, but that's irrelevant because the people that speak, it's almost like they're a direct reflection of you and where you're at. And as the group, we shift together. It's like when I shift, you shift. When you shift, I shift. So it's like this
Mm-hmm.
this ripple effect of
Mm.
of change.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Collective transformation.
yeah, and it's powerful. Like it's
Yeah.
instant shifting. It's like
Yeah.
things that you've been carrying around for years will move, and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
yeah, that's why I do what I do. Like that feeling I feel when my clients shift, like that's why I do what I do. And they
It's
wake up
amazing.
to the truth. Yeah.
Yeah, it really is. It's just like a waking up over and over again. And yeah, I mean, shining lights, um, turning switches on, unlocking doors, all those things that sort of are difficult to do on our own. I think we can do them on our own, and you do them on your own all the time, but they become so much more, I guess, immediate or powerful when you have someone who's there saying, here you are, here's the key. You've had it in you this whole time and you didn't realize it. So yeah, I mean, Rachel you're amazing at really keying into those intuitive guides and helping people key into their own inner guide. And like I said, I like to, I'm a nerd and I love research and putting together like formulas, and so you're going to get a lot of that amazing flow that Rachel has alongside of some structure that I like to put together.
Yeah, the nerd will look after that.
Yeah. You can count on me. Yeah. So it's just going to be such a cool mix, and I think you're just going to get the whole package here. So that's February 4th, Release, Rise, Receive, an 8-week journey to authentic love. And we're just going to start removing those blockages that have been getting in your way, so that you can, yeah.
Yeah, I just want to share quickly the biggest thing that, because Leah and I have been helping each other, like we've been coaching each other. And the biggest thing that I really received from Leah in our first week was my values. I just got goosebumps. Is that I, like, even after all the work that I've done and the awareness that I have, I didn't realize that I had values, and she helped me become clear on those. And it's just like, okay, wow. It's like, if you don't, if people that come into my lives don't respect those values, I have the right to say no. So yeah, thank you. Like, that was such a powerful thing to really sorry, I'm stuck on the words. Yeah, it was just really powerful exercise to do. And that's actually one of the exercises that Leah will do with you in one of the initial one-on-one consultations. So
yeah, I feel like it's a claiming, it's saying these are mine, and it's okay to have them, and it's okay for me to share what they are with everybody. And yeah, it's kind of hard to draw boundaries if we don't know what those are, what we want. And so that's the first part of this whole thing, is really claiming what it is that you want, and based off of your values. So I'm excited. If you guys want, you can click on the links in our bio. Like I said, the program is called Release, Rise, Receive. So you'll see in our bio, there's a little button for that. And if you have any questions, feel free to message us. We're an open book.